Hey guys. So, Teen Wolf's winter season premiere was last night, and oh my god, was it epic. I was on the edge of my couch saying just, oh my god, what's going to happen next? Because honestly, you never knew what was going to happen. It was so crazy. Just to have a recap, I had to write it all down just to share with you guys. It all started off with Styles having a nightmare, and it always ends up him being going towards the Nematon, which, if you guys don't know, that's the sacred place. It's like an old tree, but it was cut down, and so yeah. And with that, he kept having a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream. I mean, I honestly don't remember how many dreams that were inside of his one dream because honestly, every time he woke up, I honestly thought he was actually up for good, but obviously he wasn't. Um, he finally wakes up screaming and sweating and just panicking, and his dad runs into his room trying to calm him down. And that ends up leading into Scott, who is in his room, getting ready for school, and he starts walking, to leave, and he sees his shadow. And when he looks at his shadow, it's like his shadow's turning into his wolf form, like his alpha form. Um, And when he opens up the door, there's Isaac. Because if you guys don't know, Isaac is living with him now because Derek kicked him out. Um, he starts asking him questions like, "Are you mad at me? Do you want to hit me?" All this other stuff. And he ends up saying, "Did you kiss her?" And he's like, "No." "But did you want to?" And he's like, "Oh, hell yeah." And Scott ends up throwing him into the wall because I guess, that's Scott's first love. Allison was Scott's first love, so he's still, I guess, touchy on it. And I think Isaac's more he's more conscientious about it. However you say that word, I cannot pronounce it at all. Because his friendship with Scott, he doesn't want to ruin that. Um, and that scene leads into Allison, leaving to go to school. It's weird because like everybody's leaving to go to school, but Allison is leaving to go to the school. As you know, they moved into an apartment, so she's going to the elevator. And once she gets in the elevator, it starts getting cold. And when the elevator doors open, she's like in the hospital. So she walks into the morgue and sees her aunt's name on it. So she opens up the door where I guess they keep the bodies or whatever. And there's nothing, but then it starts flickering, and she sees her aunt trying to escape, like just scratching and really creepy. And so she quickly shuts the door and runs out the door. Well, when she runs out the door, she snaps out of it and she's at school. So basically, she was hallucinating all the way to freaking school. Talk about creepy. um, they all three realize that basically they're having side effects from the ritual sacrifice that they did to figure out where, in the last season, where their parents are being held when the Duroc kidnapped them, their parents. Um, Lydia thinks it's actually funny because last part A of season 3, Lydia was the one going crazy. And she thinks it's funny how they're all three going crazy this time. So she thinks it's pretty funny. Lydia is also the Banshee or the Screaming Woman, if you guys don't know. She found that out part A last season. Sorry, I had to write all of this down. Like, literally, I have notes of this I had to write down. So, yeah, Lydia and Isaac decide to keep an eye on all three of them, just to make sure, since obviously probably going to get worse, to, keep an eye on them, make sure nothing bad happens. Um, Also, there are a few new characters this season, or part B of this season. There's a new history teacher, and there's his daughter. Um, I guess the history teacher kind of embarrasses his daughter and wants her to make friends or whatever. So he embarrasses her and tells the whole class about it. And Scott looks behind and looks at her, and he like kind of smiles, like, oh my god, she's kind of pretty smile. And so I guess Scott's taking liking to her. Her name's Kara, so keep an eye on that, Kara. While they were outside of class, Scott, I guess Scott's scared to control his alpha form because he doesn't, I guess he's scared to hurt people now that he's an alpha. I mean, look at his past. Look at all the other alphas of what they did. I mean, I'd be scared too. But he starts to transform into actually being an alpha. And Styles notices it and he tries to tell him, dude, transform back into, being your normal self, and he can't. I guess Scott can't control it. So Styles is like trying to get him out and all this other stuff, and Scott ends up like literally taking his hands and digging his fingernails into his hands to stop it. Like there was blood everywhere, and I'm just like, I would not be able to do that. That would be so much pain. But I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So he ends up doing that, and that ends up like Styles is kind of freaking out, like, this isn't. Basically, what he says is this isn't dreams anymore. This is actually happening in real life. So basically, what they thought was, hallucinations is actually turning into becoming real life. So it's getting worse and worse, pretty much by the moment. That's when Styles tells Scott that he literally cannot read anymore. When he looks at, words, it's basically all the words or all the letters are jumbled up to where he cannot read. So basically, it's like he's dyslexic. Dyslexic? Dyslexic? However you I cannot pronounce words anymore at all. So bear with me here. By that time, I guess school's over and all that. So Lydia takes Allison to go shoot her bow and arrow, because Lydia notices that Allison is not a steady hand anymore. So she thinks, we're going to go out into the woods, take somebody who's hallucinating seeing her dead aunt to go shoot a bow and arrow. How much sense does that make? None. So they're out there, and Allison is not making any of the shots. She's like missing the whole tree. Like she's doing horrible. Like I never even thought Allison could be that horrible with how good she is at shooting a bow and arrow. But so Lydia notices, and she tells her to close her eyes and relax. But when Allison opens her eyes, she sees her aunt running around the forest. So basically, what Allison does is take the arrow and tries to shoot her. Well, when she tries to shoot her, she lets go of the bow and arrow, and then she wakes up from her hallucination. She almost literally shot the arrow through Lydia. And luckily Isaac was there and caught it like this, like almost going towards Lydia's head. So luckily Isaac was there, or else Lydia would be dead. Allison panics and she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That's when they realize it's getting even worse. After that, Isaac, goes home and tells Scott about how bad it's getting. And Scott's like, what were you doing there in the first place? And ends up throwing Isaac into the wall again. That was basically, the end of that scene. So they went to the commercial and all that other stuff. Styles finds out that his dad is looking through all the old cases, and I guess there's a lot of cases that were unsolved because apparently a lot of them were with paranormal stuff. So there's one case in particular that Styles' dad is actually reopening and trying to understand and get, actually, he wants to know what actually happened to this family. I guess this family was traveling, and um, there was a car wreck, and there was a 9-year-old daughter. There was two daughters and a mother, and I guess the eldest daughter, who was 9, went missing, and they didn't find the car till 3 days later. So, and it just so happens it all happened on a full moon. So Styles' dad thinks it's all because, werewolves. So, and then while they were looking around, Styles notices Scott's dad's name is on the boxes. And that's when Styles' dad tells Styles about, I guess Scott's dad is trying to take Styles' dad's job. With that, Styles, I guess it's the next day, Styles goes back to school, and he goes into his class, and he tries to sit somewhere, and all the girl does is sign language. So he's like, you know what, forget it, I'll go sit somewhere else. So he does. Turns out, everybody's quiet, but they all keep looking at Coach, which is his teacher, and all Coach is doing is this sign language, and it's the same thing over and over again. And he finally has had enough of it and gets up, and he's like, screw it. And when he looks back, he sees the whole class doing the same exact sign language as the Coach. So he starts freaking out. And with that, he wakes up, and I guess Styles thinks that he was sleeping, and when actually Scott tells him, you weren't sleeping. Styles looks over at his paper, and he was writing wake up all over his paper. So it's basically getting even worse now. So with that, everyone decides, I guess, to meet up at lunch, and they're trying to understand what's happening and why is this going on and how can they fix it. That's when Kira, the new teacher's daughter, she comes up and tells them, that she was overhearing what they were saying. So she tells them about Bardo and all the stages of it, and I guess you can be haunted by demons from it, and all the stages of it, and the last stage is basically death. So that's when they're like, oh, now we have reason to even freak out even more. So, Scott and Styles decide to go to Scott's boss, who was also basically like, I guess, a protector or something like that. And Styles tells him about what his coach was doing, and Scott's boss basically tells him in sign language what his coach was saying, and it's like, when a door is not a door, what is it? And he's like, I guess when the door is not open, what is it? He's like, it's ajar, or something like that. And he's basically saying that when they did their sacrifice thing to find their parents, that left basically a door ajar in their minds. So that's why they're hallucinating and all this other stuff. And he also told them that each of them needs to find a way to close it as soon as possible, or else it's just going to get worse and worse. So, after they talked with his boss, they decided to, of course, leave. And while they were leaving, Scott's dad shows up at the vet clinic and asks for Scott's help. And because he's a werewolf, has all these senses. And basically he asks to, come with him to the father's house, which is the father of the wife and the 2 children, who were in the accident, and he asked him to, sniff around, see if he can get her scent or anybody's scent from it. And that's what he does. So they end up going to the house. Scott's dad distracts the father while they end up sneaking into the house and trying to catch the scent. But all Scott is smelling is a dog. So I guess the dad got the dog and ended up couldn't smell anything. So I guess Styles ends up taking a picture of, I guess there was a photo in the daughter's room of the younger daughter and the eldest daughter. So they leave, and he basically tells them that there's no scent there anymore. I mean, if it was earlier, he probably would have, captured it, but with it being 8 years later, there's nothing. That's when Styles decides to tell Scott about his dad taking his dad's job. So, yeah, it kind of sucks. Scott was there.
Would you like to sleep?
Scott was there. Ooh, yummy, thank you. Scott was there. Scott went home and basically told off his dad, saying, "Get out, why did you do this to me?" It was just crazy hectic. Luckily, Scott's mom came home, and he's like, "Why are you yelling at him?" and all this other stuff. Scott basically gets so mad at his dad and starts basically transforming right there. Luckily, his mom, sees it, sees his nail coming out, and drags him away. But his dad's like, "What the hell's going on? Why are you breathing like that?" Like this questioning look, like, "What the hell's wrong with my son?" She pulled him away, trying to tell him, find that anchor, bring yourself back to normal. And basically she just tells him, you have to be your own anchor now, because Allison used to be Scott's anchor. So he's not with Allison anymore. So what's his anchor going to be? It has to be himself. It's like in real life. You really can't rely on, everybody else. You have to rely on yourself. So she basically told him how it is. And I guess after that happened, Scott realized, hey, I'm actually gonna... He just wanted to go find a dead body, I guess. So he went up to Styles and he's like, "Let's go find this dead body." And I'm sitting here thinking, like, so you just think on your own you're gonna go find a dead body. Okay, it's been 8 years. You're not gonna find a dead body. So they're walking around in the woods, and they actually come across the car, which you would think they would move the car if it was wrecked. I mean, I've never seen a car not moved after a wreck, but I guess it was so deep in the ravine that they couldn't move it. So they found the car. There was scratches all over it. You could clearly tell it was a werewolf with the way of how wide the claw marks were. So they looked around the car. They actually found the baby doll, the exact same baby doll that was in the picture that the younger sister was holding. They took it out of the car and it says, "I'm hungry." The doll literally says, "I'm hungry," and they all jump back, and Styles like, "I think I just had a heart attack." And Scott looks up and he starts hearing growling. So he basically takes off after it, which, knowing me, the smart thing to do was not take after it. But it's Scott. He's an alpha. What are you gonna do? He's beast. But so he does that, and he goes after it and finds out it's Malia. So I guess that's the 9-year-old daughter, I'm guessing. So he finds out it's her, and it's basically the end of the episode, and he's trying to get a hold of Derek. Well, at the last scene, it shows Derek and his Uncle Peter basically chained up to a fence, being shocked and all that, and tortured, which was Peter's fault, because, Peter even admits it's his fault. So that was the end of the episode. So that left me just sitting here like, what the fuck? Really? You're going to leave it like this? Like, why are Peter and Derek like that? who's the wolf? Who's Malia? Is that the actual 9-year-old girl? Is it? Or is it? I'm just sitting here thinking like all these things in my head. It was epic. That's all I have to say. And I cannot wait for next week. So that was basically what happened through the whole episode. Like my review of this episode is like, oh my god, it was excellent. I think they did great this season. The whole cast and crew, A+ applause, all of that. Oh my god, you guys did great. Like this season, even though it's episode 1, tops every episode that or every season that they've done already. Completely already done. And if you guys have not watched Teen Wolf, I suggest you watch it because it is probably the best show that has ever been made. Ever. So, I will put the links. If you guys have missed, Teen Wolf and all that other stuff, you can actually watch it online at mtv.com/teenwolf and watch their full-length episodes there. So I'll put a link on that down in the description box. So if you guys want to go watch it. But yeah, that's basically what went on in the episode last night and my reaction towards it, and it was just freaking crazy. I'm so stoked about this season. I cannot wait. I honestly wish I had a time machine just so I could go forward in time and just see the next episode. That's how excited I am. So yeah. We'll definitely watch Teen Wolf, and you guys will be seeing me next week with another, telling you what happened in the episode and a review about it. So, talk to you guys later.